Would you like to add some dark and moody decor to your home this fall? Well, in today's video, I'll be sharing 15 easy and very inexpensive DIY projects. I've got ideas for you whether you are looking to create a spooky vibe for Halloween or simply want to add a few Gothic touches to your home. So if you are ready to embrace the spirit of the season, let's get started.
Some of you know that I'm a former English teacher, so I absolutely love autumn and Halloween themed literature. To frame a favorite poem, I painted a plastic thrift store picture frame with 2 coats of black chalk paint. When the paint was dry, I lightly distressed it with sandpaper and brushed on antiquing wax, wiping away the excess with a rag. I found an excerpt from the poem The Raven, written in Poe's own handwriting, that I printed out to fit inside the frame. I used my favorite glue stick to adhere the poem to the oval piece of cardboard from the frame. Because I wasn't going to replace the glass, I added some extra pieces of cardboard behind the poem so that the backing would fit in the frame properly. To increase the spookiness factor, I pushed a small nail through the poem and into the cardboard backing. Then I tied a strand of white thread around the nail and pulled the strand down across the poem. I found a spider clip in my stash that likely came from Dollar Tree. I pulled off the clip and hot glued the spider over the thread and then cut off the extra thread.
As I'm getting older, I'm trying to eat healthier. I'm especially trying to lower my sugar intake. But I find shopping for wholesome foods at the grocery store is overwhelming. And it seems like all the healthy options are so expensive. But recently, I discovered Thrive Market. It's an online membership-based grocery store with the highest quality products. All of their products are non-GMO, and they restrict over 1,000 other ingredients. And what's more, they have great prices, up to 30% below retail. I saved over $12 on my last order.
And if you find a lower price somewhere else, they'll match it. I also love the convenience of getting everything delivered right to my door. And shipping is free on orders of $49 or more.
If you'd like to enjoy the convenience, affordability, and health benefits of Thrive Market, just use the link in my description box or go to thrivemarket.com/Canterbury Cottage
To get 30% off your first order.
and a gift worth up to $60 when you join Thrive Market today.
If you like spider decor, here's another easy and very inexpensive idea. You'll need a simple open lantern like those sold at Dollar Tree. I found my lantern and an electric candle at a thrift store for just a couple dollars. To begin, you'll want to hot glue your light inside your lantern. Then grab some white string or twine. Tie one end of the twine to the lantern and then begin wrapping it in a haphazard manner. Sometimes go straight across the side of the lantern and sometimes go diagonally. When you're happy with how it looks, tie off the end of your twine. Add a few spiders to the twine. The Dollar Tree plastic spider rings work really well. Did I mention that I'm a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe? So I want to make this thrift store storage box look like a vintage Poe book. I started by sanding over the design. Although it didn't come off, I was able to lighten it so that it wouldn't show through the paper I was going to add. I found and printed out a vintage book cover and book spine to fit the storage box. I started to decoupage the paper to the box, but then I remembered that I wanted to make a hole in the storage box cover first. I drilled a hole in the center of the cover and then used a pair of sharp clippers to cut out from the hole. I pushed out the cut sections towards the front and then cut off all the loose pieces of fabric and cardboard. Now I was ready to decoupage. I applied a good amount of Mod Podge to the box because the fabric was really soaking it up. I also brushed Mod Podge on the back of the paper before adhering it to the box. Once I had the paper arranged in the center, I rolled over it several times with a brayer to make sure that the paper gripped onto the fabric cover. Then I flipped open the box and, using a utility knife, I cut through the paper that was covering the hole. If you're a subscriber, you may remember a similar project from a previous video. I took a plastic raven that was previously attached to a thrift store floral arrangement, and using scissors, I cut off the back half of his body and stuck his head through the hole. The raven fit snugly and didn't need any hot glue to stay in place. However, I did pull some feathers from the body and hot glue them around the hole edges so that it would look like the bird had to struggle to bust out of the book. To make the book look aged, I distressed the paper a bit with sandpaper and then brushed on a top coat of Mod Podge to seal it. I really like using the Dollar Tree skeleton salad tongs in Halloween decor because they're solid plastic, not hollow, so they're quite sturdy. For this project, I spray painted one arm black and cut it just above the elbow joint. I found an old piece of wood and drilled a small hole about 2/3 of the way down. Then I drilled a small hole into the end of the arm bone. I added a skinny wood screw through the hole in the wood and added some E6000 adhesive around the screw tip. Then I screwed into the hole in the arm bone. I didn't like how shiny the black spray paint was, so I painted over it with some black chalk paint. Once the paint is dry, you can add whatever spooky embellishments you like. I added a real votive candle and a couple of Dollar Tree transparent butterfly stickers. I like to trim off the transparent edges to give the butterflies a more realistic appearance. My candle was a little wobbly, so I melted the bottom of the candle with my heat gun so it would stay put. But to be safe, you really should use a battery-operated candle. You can also tie some thread around a finger to create a dangling spider. If you like old rusty things like I do, then you're going to like this next project. To create rust on some old tin containers, I sat them in a disposable bowl in my garage and covered them with toilet bowl cleaner. A couple of times a day, I would rinse them off with water and then reapply the toilet bowl cleaner. I just reused the cleaner that was already in the bowl. In just a few days, you'll have some really rusty containers. I like to spray mine with a clear top coat before I use them in any projects. To make labels for the cans, tape a piece of regular tissue paper to a piece of cardstock. Then print out some Halloween or autumn-themed images in sizes to fit the sides of your cans. Apply Mod Podge to the side of each can and then carefully place the piece of tissue paper into the Mod Podge, applying another light coat of Mod Podge over the top and carefully smoothing out any wrinkles. The labels will be just subtly apparent on the sides of the cans, appearing as if they have faded over time or been rusted over. As a finishing touch, I ripped some strips of fabric to create a bow that I tied around the top of each can. You can fill your cans with fall florals, small pumpkins, or just about anything. I like using them to hold a bundle of taper candles. They also make great containers for those Dollar Tree skeleton salad tongs. Cut the fat end off of the arm bone just so that it will stick into styrofoam better. Then give the bones a more aged appearance. I apply some black chalk paint and then rub it off, and then I apply some antiquing wax and rub it off. Just kind of play around until you get a look you like. Then print out some images of cemetery signs or gravestones and decoupage them to the sides of the cans. Next, fill the cans with styrofoam. Cheap packing styrofoam works just fine. Then cover the styrofoam with moss. I make a hole in the center of the styrofoam so that the salad tong inserts easier. Then I like to add a little fake vine to wrap around the fingers of the skeleton hand. I thrifted this broken wall clock for only $1.49. Although I probably could have fixed it, I had a different idea in mind. First, I sanded off the numbers. Then I removed the clock mechanism and the small wood round that it was attached to. To fill in the screw holes, I applied painter's tape to the back side of the metal grid and then filled in the holes with wood putty on the front side. While the putty dried, I applied antiquing wax to the frame to add some color back into the wood. Once the putty was dry, I sanded it smooth, and then I painted the entire metal grid with black chalk paint. I thought the clock looked like a window, so I decided to add some Dollar Tree Halloween cutouts. I pried the pumpkin off of the cat, and then I painted the two pieces separately. When the paint was dry, I used a black paint pen to fill in the face on the jack-o'-lantern. I used a combination of Gorilla Glue and hot glue to attach the cat to the back side of the metal grid. Then I used hot glue to attach the jack-o'-lantern to the front of the clock, which conveniently disguised a discolored spot on the wood frame. Then, to take this Halloween scene to the next level, I hot glued a strand of Dollar Tree battery-operated lights around the perimeter of the back side. I wanted purple lights, but I couldn't find any, so I went with green instead. There are so many fun, free vintage Halloween images out there that I thought I would decoupage some to those paper mache boxes you can buy at the Dollar Tree. I spray painted the boxes black and then distressed them with sandpaper to make them look like a box from a vintage board game. I found several vintage board game images and decoupaged them to the lid of each box. I also thought it would be fun to decoupage a large box of matches. You could even put something inside and use them as gift boxes. I recently thrifted a few vintage metal 8x10 frames. I remember having these in my home as a child. I removed the glass and the backing and then ripped off the easel and removed the bolt that held it in place. I returned the backing to the frame, but this time with the velvet side facing forward. Since I didn't return the glass, I needed to add some extra cardboard to the back to hold everything snugly in place. Then I cut an Edgar Allan Poe poem from a book and used glue stick to adhere it to a piece of cereal box cardboard. To make it appear as if it had been sewn to the velvet, I stitched around the 4 edges of the cardboard on my sewing machine. However, I actually just attached it with hot glue. The metal hanging ring was just above the poem, so I tied on a bow using a piece of black velvet ribbon. To create some fun Halloween drinking glasses, pick up a roll of frosted window film at Dollar Tree. Use it just like regular vinyl for your Cricut machine and cut out words like toxic, poison, and lethal. If you don't have a cutting machine, you could use sticker letters instead. Apply the letters to some clear glasses. After Halloween is over, you can easily scrape off the lettering. Or if you want to make the words permanent, apply a coat of dishwasher safe Mod Podge over the letters. Halloween is the perfect time to make use of any bug rub-on transfers you might have. I love the idea of applying bugs to pretty drinking glasses, cups, and plates. You can scrub them off after Halloween or make them permanent by applying a few coats of dishwasher-safe Mod Podge over the top. You don't need to spend a lot of money to create a really good and spooky wreath. In fact, I made this one for around $5. I picked up a cheap twig wreath at Goodwill and spray painted it black. Then I took a piece of Dollar Tree spider webbing and spread it out over about 1/3 of the wreath. This stuff is really stretchy and sticky, just like a real spider web. And I added a skeleton, also from Dollar Tree. The spider webbing comes with a few spiders, so I put one in the webbing and one in the skeleton's eye. Then I printed out an image of an old headstone and adhered it to a piece of cardboard using glue stick. I cut the cardboard into the headstone shape and attached a small dowel rod to the back side with hot glue, and then added it to the wreath. I didn't hot glue anything in place. Everything was either wired to the wreath or just stuck in the twigs, so I can easily switch things out next Halloween if I want to. As a final touch, I stretched out a piece of the spider webbing and hot glued a spider to the end of it so that the spider would be dangling below the wreath. I also took an old bird that I had and spray painted it black, and then I cut a slit in the bottom of the styrofoam so that the bird would sit snugly on top of the cardboard headstone. This idea for repurposing old candles has been around for a while. Add a piece of crayon to the melted wax to give it some color and tie a poison or danger label to an extra long candle wick. You could also use vinyl letters on the saucer to spell out words like poison or goodbye. Here is another tried and true idea that I wanted to include so that I could share several vintage apothecary labels with you. These labels can make even the most ordinary bottles or jars look vintage. Before printing them out, just size them to fit your jars and then adhere them with Mod Podge. To add even more vintage appeal, use corks instead of the bottle lids. I ordered a variety pack of corks from Amazon, but you could just cut down wine corks to make them fit your bottles. If you do use the lids, you can make them look vintage by first painting them black. Then when that paint is dry, take 2 or 3 shades of brown acrylic paint and dab it on. And while the brown paint is still wet, sprinkle the lid with some cinnamon and then go over that with your dabber to kind of blend the cinnamon in with the paint. To go along with the owl eyeball label, you can add a package of Dollar Tree eyeballs to your jar. Then add a couple drops of food coloring to a cup of water and pour that over your eyeballs. I also like to swish around a little colored water in my empty bottles to make it look like they once contained chemicals. To create a display, I also made an apothecary sign by taking the back off of a picture frame and hot gluing the glass in place, and then creating a vinyl decal on my Cricut machine. We recently replaced some outdoor lights that were in really bad shape. Most people would have thrown them away, but I thought they would make for some interesting, dark and moody indoor decor. To remove the wall mount and light socket, I needed to remove a nut that was on the inside of the lantern. After struggling for several minutes, I decided to just hammer off the wall mount, and then I was able to access the nut from the outside. I found a thrift store wood wall sconce in my stash, and again I grabbed my hammer, this time to remove the little shelf. Then I pulled out the brad nails that held the shelf in place. I flipped the shelf over and applied some antiquing wax to the back side to give it a cleaner, more finished appearance. I just brushed it on with an old paintbrush and wiped off the excess with a paper towel. I arranged the lantern upside down on the wall plaque and drilled a hole through the back side of the lantern and into the wood. Then I attached a screw that would hold the lantern in place so that I could flip it over and add additional screws through the back side. Updating and customizing thrift store drink coasters is a fun and easy project. For both ceramic and cardboard coasters, you'll first want to rough up the surface with sandpaper. Print out the anatomical images that I have linked in the description box. Be sure to print them out in a size that's slightly larger than your coasters. Apply Mod Podge both to the coaster and the back of the paper image. This gives you a few seconds to adjust the paper into place before it permanently adheres. Once the Mod Podge is dry, trim off the excess paper and then smooth the edges with sandpaper. To waterproof the paper, apply a couple more coats of Mod Podge or a few light applications of a spray top coat. To store the coasters, I painted and distressed a Dollar Tree crate. Then I printed out a vintage advertisement for coffins and used glue stick to adhere the paper to a piece of cardboard. Then I cut it out and hot glued it to the crate. Finally, I applied some clear wax over the crate to seal and protect the paint. Thanks so much for watching today. I'd love to know if you're going to try any of these projects. And if you want even more ideas like these, here's another video I think you'll like.